The rain-slicked streets of a forgotten industrial town gleamed under the sodium glow of flickering streetlights, the kind of place where shadows clung to the edges of crumbling warehouses like unspoken regrets. It was just past midnight when the scream pierced the night, a raw, desperate cry that cut through the hum of distant traffic. In the mouth of a narrow alley, a teenage boy, no older than 16, huddled against a graffiti-scarred wall, his face pale and streaked with mud and tears. His clothes were torn, knuckles scraped raw from what looked like a frantic scramble through the underbrush. "Please," he gasped to no one, his voice breaking as he clutched a battered phone. Its screen cracked like his resolve. "They're after my brother. They said they'd find him. Make him pay." The words hung in the damp air, laced with terror, as headlights swept the far end of the street, engines growling like predators closing in. From the darkness beyond the alley, a lone figure emerged, his silhouette cutting through the mist like a blade. Ethan "Ghost" Harlan, a weathered man in his late 40s, rode at the front of a loose pack of Hell's Angels, 50 strong. Their Harleys rumbling low and steady, exhaust fumes mingling with the scent of wet asphalt. Ethan's face was a map of old scars, one slicing across his jaw from a long-ago skirmish in the deserts of the Middle East, where promises made in foxholes had bound him to brothers he'd never forget. He'd left that life behind, or so he thought, trading sand for blacktop. But the road had a way of pulling you back. Tonight, they were just passing through on a routine ride, leather vests patched with the winged skull of their club, when the kid's cry yanked Ethan from his thoughts. He killed the engine first, the sudden silence amplifying the boy's sobs, and swung his leg over the bike with the grace of someone who'd danced with death too many times. The convoy halted in a synchronized wave, boots hitting pavement as the bikers formed a loose perimeter, their presence a wall of chrome and resolve. Ethan approached slowly, his boots splashing in shallow puddles, the faint jingle of chains on his belt, the only sound besides the patter of rain. The kid flinched, eyes wide with a mix of fear and hope, but Ethan knelt to his level, gloved hands open and non-threatening. "Easy, son," he murmured, his voice gravelly from years of wind and smoke, carrying the quiet authority of a man who'd stared down worse than shadows. "Name's Ethan. Who's after your brother and why?" The boy, his name was Noah, he stammered, spilled it in fragments. A local gang, tied to crooked cops in the precinct across town, shaking down families for protection money. Noah's brother, Lucas, a former Marine like Ethan, had stood up to them, exposed a ring of corruption that went all the way to the top. Now they were hunting him, and Noah had run straight into the wrong place at the wrong time. Ethan's jaw tightened, a flicker of recognition igniting in his chest. Lucas. The name tugged at a thread from the past. Back in the war, Ethan had served alongside a Lucas Harlan, no relation but a bond forged in fire, a promise whispered over MREs. If one falls, the other rises. We watch each other's backs, always. It couldn't be the same man, but the coincidence burned like a sign from the road itself. He'd buried that oath deep after the service, lost brothers to the bottle and the bottle to isolation, riding solo until the angels gave him a new family. But promises like that didn't fade. They rusted, waiting for the right storm to polish them clean. "They're not getting him," Ethan said, his tone final, like the click of a chamber locking. "Not while we're here." He glanced back at his crew, hard men with their own ghosts. Jax, the ex-cop with a bad-shaped tattoo over his heart. Maria, a nurse who'd patched more wounds than she could count. And the rest, a tapestry of redemption stitched from regret. One nod from Ethan, and they were in, engines idling like a vow unspoken. Noah's eyes searched Ethan's face, disbelief warring with desperation. "You don't know what you're up against. These guys, they own this town." Ethan placed a hand on the boy's shoulder, the leather warm against the chill night. "We've faced worse, kid, And we've got a code. You protect your own, blood or chosen. Your brother's got that now. As the first distant sirens wailed, too close, too knowing, Ethan helped Noah to his feet, guiding him toward the bikes. The angels moved like a well-oiled machine, Jax revving his engine to cover their retreat, Maria wrapping a spare jacket around the shivering teen. The rain picked up, drumming on helmets and handlebars, but the air crackled with purpose. This wasn't just a rescue, it was the spark of something larger, a forgotten promise resurfacing to challenge the rot-eating at the town's core. They rode out under the cover of the storm, Noah wedged between Ethan and Jax on the lead bike, the convoy stretching like a serpent through the back roads. The scent of pine and wet earth replaced the urban decay, but tension coiled in Ethan's gut. He'd seen corruption before, in war zones and border towns, how it festered, turning guardians into predators. Lucas, if he was the man Ethan remembered, wouldn't back down, but alone. He'd be ground to dust. Flashes of memory assaulted Ethan. The blast that took their squad, the oath sworn in the rubble. "We ride for the fallen," he'd said then. Now it felt like fate's cruel joke, pulling him back in. The headlights cut through the downpour, illuminating faded signs for motels and diners long closed, each mile a step toward confrontation. By the time they hit the outskirts, the first hints of dawn bled pink across the horizon, gilding the bikes in a fleeting light. Noah, exhausted, leaned against Ethan's back, murmuring thanks that dissolved into sleep. Ethan didn't respond. His mind was on the road ahead, the weight of leathers and legacy pressing down. The Angels had become more than a club. They were a shield, forged in loss, unbreakable in loyalty. And as the sun crested, casting long shadows over the asphalt, Ethan knew this ride would test them all, unearthing secrets that could redeem or destroy. But for the boy and his brother, it was already too late to turn back. The promise was alive, roaring to life with every twist of the throttle. What happens next? If you're hooked, smash that like button and subscribe for the full ride, because stories like this don't just entertain. They remind us what honor looks like in the rear view. The first rays of dawn slice through the thinning veil of rain, turning the winding back roads into ribbons of molten silver. Ethan's Harley led the pack, its engine a steady growl that drowned out the fading thunder, while the convoy of 49 bikes trailed like loyal shadows, their chrome catching the light in fleeting sparks. Noah clung to Ethan's waist, his breaths coming in shallow rhythms now, the terror of the night ebbing into wary trust. The air was crisp with the scent of damp pine and cooling earth, a far cry from the stale rot of the town they'd left behind. But Ethan felt no relief. His grip on the handlebars was iron, knuckles white under weathered gloves, as if the road itself might betray them at any turn. They pulled into a secluded rest stop off the highway, an old gravel lot flanked by overgrown woods, and a weathered diner that looked like it hadn't served a hot meal in years. The sign flickered faintly. Last Chance Cafe, its neon buzzing like a trapped insect. Ethan cut the engine, the sudden quiet amplifying the drip of water from overhanging branches and the soft creak of cooling metal. The Angels dismounted in unison, a ritual of boots on gravel and the jangle of keys, forming a protective circle around Noah as he slid off the bike, legs shaky from the ride. Jax, broad-shouldered with a face etched by too many nights chasing ghosts in uniform, clapped a hand on the boy's back. "You did good holding on, kid. Now spill the rest. Where's Lucas holed up?" Noah rubbed his arms, Maria's borrowed jacket swallowing his frame, its leather scent mixing with the faint tang of fear sweat. He glanced around the group, hard eyes softened by shared scars, women and men who'd traded badges or stethoscopes for vests emblazoned with the winged skull. "He's at the old mill on the river's edge, about 20 miles east. Said it'd be safe, off the grid. But those guys, the ones after him, they're not just street thugs. There's a detective, Harlan, wait, no relation to you, I hope, leading the pack. Calls himself the town's law. But Lucas says he's dirty, taking payoffs to look the other way on shipments that shouldn't be moving. Ethan's blood ran cold at the name, though it was common enough. Harlan, his own last name, a coincidence that twisted like a knife. He leaned against his bike, crossing his arms, the faint scar on his jaw pulling tight as he clenched his teeth. Memories flooded back unbidden. The desert heat, the crack of gunfire. Lucas, yes, it had to be him, dragging Ethan from a collapsed bunker, whispering that oath amid the dust and debris. "We don't leave brothers behind. Promise me, ghost, you watch for me when I can't." Ethan had nodded then, bloodied and broken, but life had scattered them after discharge. Lucas to this forsaken town, Ethan to the endless highway. If fate was cruel enough to reunite them like this, it was time to honor what time couldn't erase. Maria, her dark hair tied back under a bandana, knelt beside Noah with a thermos of black coffee, steam rising like a peace offering. She'd seen enough in ER shifts to know when a kid was teetering on collapse, eyes hollow, hands trembling not just from cold. "Drink this, Noah. It'll steady you. Your brother's a fighter like these folks here. We've all got stories of standing up when it counts." Her voice was calm, laced with the quiet strength of someone who'd bandaged wounds from bar fights and battlefield echoes alike. Noah nodded, sipping slowly, the warmth spreading through him as he recounted more. Lucas had stumbled on evidence, ledgers hidden in a warehouse, names of officials trading justice for cash. He'd tipped off a journalist, but the story never ran. Instead, the hunters came, framing Lucas as the thief, the agitator. Now, with Noah snatched as leverage, the noose tightened. The group murmured, a low rumble of agreement and outrage. Jax paced the gravel, his ex-cop instincts firing. "Sounds like the kind of rot that starts small and spreads. I've seen it, badges turning blind for a cut of the pie. We ride in blind, we play their game." Ethan straightened, his gaze sweeping the horizon where the sun climbed higher, painting the trees in gold. "Then we don't play. We shield. Get Lucas out. Get him clear and let the truth do the rest." It was a code as old as the club itself. Protect the innocent, honor the bond, strike only for justice. No one argued. The Angels were built on such foundations. A family forged not by blood, but by the miles they'd ridden through hell together. As the coffee warmed Noah's veins, a distant engine whine cut the morning hush. Too purposeful, too close. Ethan signaled, and the crew mounted up swiftly, bikes roaring to life in a symphony of power. Noah climbed back with Ethan, his resolve hardening like the dawn light. They peeled out, gravel spraying like confetti for a war unspoken, weaving through the woods toward the river. The path narrowed, branches whipping at leathers, the scent of moss and motor oil thick in the air. Ethan's mind raced ahead. If Lucas was the brother from the sands, this ride wasn't just rescue, it was redemption. A chance to keep a promise 40 years in the making. But shadows lingered in the tree line, and the whine grew louder, a pursuit closing in like Judgment Day. The mill loomed as they broke through the final stretch of forest, its skeletal frame rising against the rushing river, a relic of better days, rusted beams groaning under ivy and neglect. Smoke curled from a makeshift chimney, a sign of life within. Ethan slowed, the convoy fanning out to block the approach, engines idling like watchful sentinels. He killed his bike and approached on foot, Noah at his side, the boy's steps tentative but determined. The door creaked open before they reached it, revealing a man in his 40s, lean and weathered, a shotgun loose in his grip, but eyes sharp with recognition. "Ethan? Ghost Harlan? What in the hell?" Lucas's voice cracked the air, disbelief etching his features, the same fierce gaze from those foxhole nights. The brothers in arms stared, the weight of forgotten oaths crashing down like the river's roar. But before words could bridge the years, tires screeched from the road behind, 3 black SUVs bursting through the trees, lights flashing without sirens, men piling out with drawn weapons and badges glinting falsely. The trap had sprung, corruption baring its teeth. Ethan stepped forward, his crew at his back, a wall of leather and loyalty. "We're here for you, brother," he said, voice steady as steel. "Like we promised." The standoff hung thick, the river's rush underscoring the tension as justice and shadows collided under the climbing sun. The sun climbed higher, its rays piercing the canopy like accusatory fingers, casting jagged shadows across the mill's weathered facade. The river churned below, a relentless murmur that seemed to echo the pounding hearts of those gathered. Ethan stood firm, his boots planted in the soft earth, the faint scent of rust and damp wood rising from the structure behind him. Lucas gripped the shotgun tighter, not raised but ready, his eyes locking onto Ethan's with a mix of shock and gratitude that bridged decades in an instant. Noah hovered close, his small frame taut between the 2 men who'd become his anchors in the storm. The angels held their ground, a semicircle of resolve, engines still humming low as if breathing for them, chrome glinting like unspoken threats. From the SUVs, 6 figures emerged, broad-shouldered men in ill-fitting suits and tactical vests, badges pinned like false talismans. At their lead was Detective Harlan, a stocky man with a bulldog face and eyes narrowed to slits, his hand resting on the holster at his belt. No relation to Ethan, but the name hung like a curse, twisting the air with irony. "Harlan!" the detective barked, his voice carrying over the water's rush, laced with the false authority of someone who'd long sold his soul for scraps. "You and your road rats think you can waltz in here? This is official business. Stand down or we'll make it messy." His men fanned out, weapons drawn but not aimed, yet a calculated show of power, the kind that intimidated the weak but only steeled the just. Ethan didn't flinch, his scarred jaw set like granite. He'd faced down worse in the haze of desert ambushes, where the line between ally and enemy blurred under fire. This was no battlefield, but the stakes felt the same. A brother's life, a promise unkept too long. "Official?" he replied, his tone even, gravelly, cutting through the tension like a knife through fog. "Looks more like a shakedown to me. We've got the kid here safe. You want Lucas? You'll have to go through us." Behind him, Jax shifted subtly, his ex-cop senses mapping escape routes, the river's bend for cover, the tree line for retreat, while Maria scanned the group for signs of injury, her nurse's instincts ever vigilant. Lucas stepped forward, shotgun lowering slightly, his voice steady despite the tremor in his hands. "You know why they're here, Ghost. I found the ledgers, names, dates, payoffs from those shipments rolling through the docks. Cops, councilmen, all in bed with the smugglers. I was gonna blow it open, make it right for the families getting crushed under their boot." His eyes flicked to Noah, softening for a beat. "They grabbed the boy to draw me out, framed me as the leak, said I'd stolen evidence, but it's all there, hidden in the mill's old safe. Proof that could clean this town from the inside." The detective's face twisted, a snarl escaping as he gestured to his men. "Lies from a deserter. Harlan, Lucas Harlan, you're under arrest for obstruction and theft. Step aside, biker, or your accessories." But his words rang hollow, the bluff evident in the way his eyes darted to the mill's door, betraying greed over conviction. Ethan caught it, the flicker of desperation in a man cornered by his own corruption. This wasn't about law. It was about silencing truth, burying promises under layers of deceit. The angels murmured low, a ripple of defiance, their loyalty a tangible force. Veterans who'd traded uniforms for vests, nurses, and mechanics bound by shared scars, all standing for the code that Ethan embodied. Tension coiled tighter, the air thick with the scent of pine sap and exhaust, the river's spray misting their faces like a warning. One of the detective's men, a younger enforcer with a nervous twitch, edged closer, weapon half raised, but Jax's glare pinned him, a silent reminder of badges betrayed. "You boys forget," Jax called out, his voice booming with the weight of lost ideals. "We know the system inside out. Pull that trigger, and it's not just assault, it's the end of your little empire." Maria moved then, subtle as a shadow, positioning herself to shield Noah, her hand on the boy's arm, a quiet vow of protection. Ethan's mind raced, piecing the fragments, the war oath, Lucas's stand, the corruption festering like an untreated wound. Redemption wasn't in fists or fire. It was in exposure, in honoring the word given under duress. "Call it off, Detective," he said, stepping one pace forward, his presence a barrier of unyielding honor. "We ride out with Lucas and the boy, and your secrets stay buried, for now. But push this, and that evidence sees daylight. Journalists, feds, the works. Your choice." The words hung, a moral gauntlet thrown, the standoff shifting from brute force to the quiet power of truth. The detective hesitated, sweat beading on his brow despite the warming sun, his men's resolve cracking under the weight of Ethan's certainty. Lucas nodded imperceptibly, slipping back toward the mill to retrieve the ledgers, faded notebooks stuffed with damning records, the kind that could topple thrones built on lies. Noah watched, wide-eyed, as the angels closed ranks tighter, their engines revving in unison, a thunderous underscore to the impasse. It was a dance on the edge, justice poised against shadows, the promise of brotherhood the only light piercing the gloom. Finally the detective spat a curse, waving his men back toward the vehicles. "This isn't over, Harlan. You think a pack of outlaws scares us?" But his retreat was hasty, tires kicking up gravel as the SUVs peeled away, vanishing into the tree line like cowards fleeing dawn. The air lightened, the river's song turning triumphant, though Ethan knew it was merely a reprieve. They'd bought time, but the rot ran deep, demanding more than escape. It called for reckoning. With the ledgers secured in a saddlebag, the group mounted up. Lucas swinging onto a spare bike behind Jax, his grip firm on the handles as if reclaiming his place in the world. Noah rode with Ethan again, the boy's voice a whisper against the wind as they accelerated. "You kept your word. To him, to me." Ethan didn't reply, but the road ahead stretched clear, the convoy roaring towards Sanctuary, a hidden clubhouse miles away, where plans would form and alliances solidify. The sun beat down now, warming leathers and souls alike, but shadows lingered in Ethan's rear view, a reminder that true shields were forged in fire, not fleeting victories. As they crested the first hill, the mill shrinking behind, Ethan felt the weight lift slightly, the promise alive pulling them forward into the unknown. But whispers of pursuit echoed in the distance, and the real test loomed, demanding every ounce of their chosen family's unbreaking loyalty. The clubhouse emerged from the haze of midday heat like a fortress carved from the bones of forgotten highways, a sprawling ranch-style building nestled in a valley ringed by jagged hills, its weathered siding scarred by years of storms and stories. Chain-link fences topped with barbed wire encircled the property, but it was the 49 Harleys lined up like sentinels that truly guarded the threshold, their polished tanks reflecting the relentless sun. Ethan eased his bike to a stop at the gate, the engine's rumble fading into the cicada hum and the distant lowing of cattle from neighboring fields. Dust settled around them in golden clouds, carrying the earthy tang of dry grass and sun-baked leather. Noah dismounted first, his legs steadier now, though his eyes darted to the shadows of the pines as if expecting the SUVs to burst through at any moment. Lucas swung off Jax's bike, the ledgers clutched under one arm like sacred relics, his face a storm of relief and resolve. The reunion hung unspoken between him and Ethan, a bridge rebuilt in glances and nods, the war's echoes binding them tighter than words could. Inside, Ethan said simply, his voice low as he punched a code into the gate's keypad. The mechanism whirring open with a metallic sigh, the angels filed in, a procession of quiet power, Maria helping Noah with a gentle hand. Jack scanning the perimeter with the precision of his old patrol days. The others, veterans named Ryan and Samuel, mechanics like Tyler who'd welded more than machines, forming a human barrier. The air inside the compound thickened with the scent of aged wood and faint motor oil. The clubhouse's double doors creaking wide to reveal a sanctuary of worn pool tables, faded flags from distant rallies, and walls adorned with patches sewn from shared triumphs and losses. They gathered in the main hall, a cavernous space lit by skylights that filtered the sun into warm shafts, dust motes dancing like fireflies in repose. Ethan claimed a spot at the scarred oak table, its surface etched with initials and dates from rides long past, while Lucas laid out the ledgers, yellowed pages crammed with scrawled entries, dates of illicit shipments, payoffs to officials, names that twisted like vines through the town's underbelly. Noah sat beside his brother, the boy's fingers tracing the bindings as if touching proof of survival. "This is it," Lucas murmured, his voice roughened by exhaustion and the weight of years. "The journalist I trusted ghosted me after the first call, said it was too hot, that they'd come for his family next. But with this, we can go public, force a real investigation." Ethan leaned forward, the chair groaning under his frame, his scarred hands splaying on the table like anchors. The room fell silent, the only sounds the faint tick of a wall clock and the muffled chatter of birds outside. He'd carried promises like these before, oaths sworn in the dim glow of helmet lights during night ops, where loyalty meant the difference between dawn and dust. But this was home soil, where corruption wore a uniform and the cost of truth could shatter more than glass. "It's not just about going public," he said, eyes meeting Lucas's. "That detective, Harlan, he's got pull. Allies in the department, maybe higher. We leak this wrong, and it's not just you they're after. It's all of us, the club, the kid, everyone who's ever stood for something in this godforsaken state." Jax paced the edge of the room, his boots thudding softly on the plank floor, the badge tattoo peeking from his rolled sleeve like a ghost of regrets. "I've got contacts still, old precinct buddies who aren't all bent. But Ethan's right. This reeks of a web. Those SUVs weren't random. They knew the mill, knew you'd run there. Someone tipped them." Maria nodded from her perch on a bar stool, pouring water into mismatched glasses, the liquid glinting like liquid silver. She'd patched enough whistleblowers in her ER days to know the toll, nights of watching doors, the paranoia that clawed at the mind. "We need a plan that's clean," she added, her tone steady as a heartbeat monitor. "Get the evidence to someone untouchable, a federal contact, maybe through the Veterans Network. No lone wolves this time." The discussion wove through the afternoon, voices rising and falling like the river they'd left behind, mapping routes of risk and redemption. Ryan sketched a crude map on a napkin, marking safe houses and backroad escapes, while Samuel recounted a similar stand from his firefighting days, saving a warehouse worker from a blaze set by the same smugglers, only to be silenced by threats. Noah listened, wide-eyed, the terror of the alley fading into a spark of hope, his brother's hand on his shoulder, a tether to normalcy. But Ethan's mind churned deeper, the war promise resurfacing like a tide. "We watch each other's backs, always." He'd failed it once, after discharge, letting the miles and the bottle widen the gap. Now, with Lucas across the table, alive and defiant, failure wasn't an option. This chosen family, the angels bound by ink and asphalt, would be the shield that held. As shadows lengthened across the hall, stretching from the windows like reaching fingers, a low rumble echoed from the gate. Heads snapped up, hands instinctively reaching for sidearms or tools that doubled as weapons. Ethan rose slowly, crossing to the security monitor, its grainy feed showing a single motorcycle approaching. Not an SUV, but a lone rider in neutral colors, no patches visible. "Friend or foe?" Jax muttered, positioning himself by the door. The screen flickered as the bike halted, the rider dismounting with deliberate calm, helmet tucked under an arm, to reveal a woman's face, sharp-featured and familiar in a way that tugged at Ethan's memory. She was Olivia, a journalist from the coast, her leather jacket scuffed from years chasing leads that bit back. Lucas's eyes widened. "I reached out to her months ago, before it all went south. Thought she was out." Ethan buzzed her in, the gate clanging shut behind her, and she entered the hall like a storm front, her boots echoing with purpose. "Heard you needed an ally," she said, nodding to Lucas, her voice carrying the salt of ocean winds and unyielding truth. "I've got a line to the feds, anonymous drop, no traces, but we move tonight, before they regroup." The room exhaled, tension easing into resolve, but Ethan's gaze lingered on the monitor, where distant dust clouds hinted at watchers on the horizon. The sun dipped low, painting the valley in crimson, as plans solidified around the table. A midnight ride to a neutral drop point, the ledgers split for safety, decoys to draw pursuit. Noah volunteered to ride with Olivia, his young voice firm. "For my brother, for all of you." Laughter rippled, light in the heavy air, a reminder of the family woven from strangers. But as night fell, stars pricking the velvet sky, Ethan felt the pull of the road's judgment. This wasn't victory yet. It was a vow tested, corruption's claws still scratching at the edges. The engines would roar soon, carrying them into the dark, where honor's light would either guide or blind. If this chapter has you gripping the edge of your seat, hit that like button and drop a comment below. Tell us what you do in Ethan's boots. Your support keeps these tales rolling. The night sky unfurled like a black canvas over the valley, stars scattered like distant campfires, their light filtering through the clubhouse's high windows to cast elongated shadows across the oak table. The air inside hummed with low voices and the occasional clink of bottles, the scent of strong coffee mingling with the faint, acrid bite of gun oil as the angels methodically checked their gear. Ethan stood by the map, spread out under the lamplight, his finger tracing a winding route through backcountry trails that snaked toward the drop point. An abandoned quarry on the state's edge, neutral ground, where Olivia's federal contact would wait under cover of darkness. The ledgers lay divided into 3 bundles, wrapped in oilcloth and secured in hidden compartments, one with Lucas, one with Jax, the third entrusted to Maria for the decoy run. Noah sat nearby, his young face illuminated by the glow of a tactical flashlight, practicing the route's turns on a scrap of paper, determination etching lines where fear had faded. Olivia paced the room's perimeter, her sharp eyes scanning the group with the precision of someone who dodged more deadlines than bullets. She'd shed her jacket, revealing a simple blouse rolled at the sleeves, her hair pulled back in a practical knot that spoke of long nights in dimly lit newsrooms. "The feds are solid," she assured them, her voice cutting through the murmur like a headline. "Anonymous source. Encrypted drop. No names, no traces back to you. But timing's everything. We split the convoy at the fork. Main group to the quarry. Decoys looping south to draw any tails." Lucas nodded, his lean frame tense but steady, the shotgun now propped against the wall like a retired sentinel. The reunion with Ethan had sealed something unspoken between them, a thread from the war pulling taut, reminding him that promises weren't just words. They were the rebar, holding up a life rebuilt from rubble. Ethan's gaze drifted to the window, where the hills loomed as dark silhouettes against the star-pricked void. The faint rustle of wind through the pines, carrying whispers of the pursuit they'd shaken off earlier. He'd felt this pull before, in the endless sands where every shadow hid a threat. And the oath to Lucas had been his North Star through the chaos. Now, with Noah watching him like a kid brother from another life, the weight doubled, protecting not just blood, but the fragile hope that justice could outride corruption. "We ride light," he said, breaking the quiet, his gravelly tone drawing all eyes. "No heroics. Get the packages delivered. Get clear. This town's poison doesn't wash off easy. We expose it, then vanish like smoke." The room absorbed his words, the angels shifting with the subtle synchronicity of a crew that moved as one. Ryan coiling ropes for quick escapes, Samuel testing the club's old radio for interference, Tyler fine-tuning engines in the garage beyond, the rhythmic clank echoing like a heartbeat. Maria approached Noah, handing him a small vest from the supply rack, its pockets lined for essentials: water, a flare, a burner phone. "You're with me on the decoy," she said softly, her nurse's touch lingering on his shoulder, warm against the cooling night air seeping through the cracks. "We'll make noise, draw the eyes, but you stick close. These roads know us. They'll carry us home." Noah took the vest, slipping it on over Maria's jacket, the leather creaking as he straightened. For the first time since the alley, a spark of defiance lit his eyes. Not the wild fear of a hunted boy, but the quiet fire of someone learning the shape of loyalty. "What if they follow?" he asked, voice steadying. Maria smiled faintly, the lines around her eyes crinkling from years of mending what violence broke. "Then we outrun them. Family doesn't leave tracks." Outside, the compound stirred to life under the moon's pale gaze, gravel crunching as bikes were wheeled into formation. The air grew thick with the aroma of revving engines, exhaust weaving through the night like spectral trails, the metallic tang sharp on the tongue. Jax clapped Lucas on the back. Their shared history as ex-soldiers, needing no elaboration. A nod, a grip that said more than speeches. "You started this fight for the right reasons, brother. We'll finish it." Lucas met his eyes, the ledger's burden lightening in the collective resolve. "Never thought I'd owe a pack of angels my hide, but debts like this, they bind tighter than blood." Ethan watched from the porch. The wooden boards cool under his boots, the distant hoot of an owl underscoring the tension. Redemption wasn't a blaze, it was this: the slow burn of standing firm when the world urged flight. As midnight neared, the convoy assembled in the yard, 49 machines gleaming faintly, their riders mounting with practiced ease. Olivia swung onto her own bike at the rear, a sleek cruiser borrowed from the club's spares, her helmet visor reflecting the stars like a promise of clarity. Ethan fired his Harley first, the deep roar shattering the night's hush, a call to arms that rippled through the pack. Noah climbed behind Maria, his arms wrapping around her waist, the engine's vibration thrumming through him like newfound courage. Lucas rode solo now, the bundle secure, his posture straight as he fell into line beside Ethan, the two Harlans, bound by fate's twist, leading the charge into the unknown. They rolled out through the gate, tires whispering over the dirt path before hitting the asphalt. The convoy, a serpent of light and shadow, slicing the darkness. Headlights pierced the veil, illuminating twisted oaks and fog-kissed meadows. The wind whipping at leathers with a chill that bit to the bone. Ethan led, throttle steady, his mind mapping every curve, every potential ambush point. The road climbed, offering glimpses of the valley below, where faint lights from the corrupt town flickered like dying embers. Whispers of engines trailed in the distance, perhaps imagination, perhaps not. But the angels pressed on, united in silence, their loyalty a shield against the encroaching night. Miles blurred into a rhythm of pulse and power, the quarry's silhouette emerging on the horizon like a jagged crown under the moon. But as they crested the final rise, twin beams stabbed from a side trail, SUVs, unmarked and aggressive, blocking the merge. The detectives' men, regrouped and ruthless, Engines idling with predatory intent. Radios crackled in helmets. Jax's voice cutting through. Ambush! Split now! Decoys go! Maria veered left with Noah, her bike surging into the underbrush, drawing two pursuers like moths to flame. The main group tightened, Ethan signaling a hard right, Lucas at his flank, Olivia covering the rear. Gunshots cracked the air, sharp and sporadic, pinging off metal but finding no flesh, the angels weaving like ghosts through the terrain. Ethan's heart pounded, the war's echo roaring back, but he held the line, the promise fueling every twist. The quarry loomed closer, salvation or snare, as the chase ignited into a blaze of speed and shadows. Loyalty's fire burned bright, but the night demanded its toll, testing if honor could outpace the darkness closing in. The quarry's jagged maw gaped under the moon's unyielding stare, a vast pit of shadowed stone and forgotten machinery, where the air hung heavy with the mineral bite of crushed rock and the faint metallic tang of exposed earth. Ethan's Harley surged forward, its tires chewing gravel as the convoy splintered under the ambush's pressure, headlights fracturing the night like shattered glass. Gunshots echoed off the cliffs, sharp cracks swallowed by the roar of engines, but the angels rode with the precision of a unit honed by harder trials, swerving, accelerating, their formation a living shield against the chaos. Lucas flanked Ethan, his bike a thunderous echo, the oilcloth bundle strapped tight, while Olivia's cruiser weaved at the rear, her silhouette a defiant streak against the pursuing SUV's blinding beams. Heart slamming like a war drum, Ethan downshifted into a hairpin turn, the scent of scorched rubber whipping past as bullets whined overhead, embedding in the quarry's rim with dull thuds. Memories clashed in his mind. The desert's blinding sandstorms, the foxhole, where he'd sworn that oath to Lucas, voices hoarse over the din of incoming fire. We rise together, or not at all. This was no foreign soil. It was home's underbelly, corruption's lair, but the promise burned the same, fueling his grip on the throttle. "Stay low!" he barked into his helmet mic, the wind tearing at his words, but the crew heard, bodies hunkered as they plunged deeper into the pit's embrace. From the flanks, the decoys blazed their trail, Maria's bike roaring south, Noah's arms locked around her, drawing two SUVs like bait on a hook. Her voice crackled over the radio, calm amid the frenzy. "We've got eyes on us. Keep pushing. The drop's clear." Jax peeled off with Ryan and Samuel, a secondary feint looping through the underbrush, their engines a cacophony that masked the main thrust. The detectives' men split, greed blinding them to the ruse, tires skidding as they chased phantoms into the dark. Ethan glimpsed it in his mirrors, the taillights scattering like embers, the quarry's depths swallowing the lead group whole. The federal contact waited at the pit's heart, a nondescript van idling beside rusted excavators, its driver a shadow in tactical gear, no face visible under a hood. Olivia signaled first, her bike slowing as she unstrapped her bundle and hurled it toward the van's open side door, ledgers vanishing into waiting hands like secrets finally freed. Lucas followed suit, the second package arcing through the air, landing with a soft thump that carried the weight of exposed lies. Ethan circled wide, covering their flank, his engine's growl a barrier against any straggler. No shots came now, the pursuers were stretched thin, their ambush crumbling under the Angel's unyielding momentum. As the van's door slammed shut and it lurched into reverse, gravel spraying like a farewell. A vinyl SUV crested the rim above, Detective Harlan himself at the wheel, face twisted in the dashboard glow, his roar lost to the wind. He floored it, barreling down the incline, but Ethan was ready. With a nod to Lucas, they gunned their bikes side by side, blocking the descent in a wall of chrome and resolve. The SUV fishtailed, brakes screeching like a wounded beast, halting mere feet from collision. The detective burst out, weapon drawn, his badge catching moonlight like a mocking star. "You think this ends it?" Those books are nothing without witnesses. You're all going down. Obstruction, vigilantism, the works." Ethan dismounted slowly, boots crunching stone, his presence a calm anchor amid the settling dust. The remaining angels fanned out behind him, Jax emerging from the shadows, Olivia holstering a flare gun, Lucas standing tall with shotgun in hand, but unfired. Noah and Maria rejoined from the decoy path, the boy's chest heaving, eyes wide but unbroken. The air stilled, thick with the cooling exhaust and the river's distant murmur filtering up from the valley, a reminder of paths untaken. "It's over," Ethan said, voice steady as the earth's core, carrying the quiet thunder of truths unearthed. "The feds have the ledgers now, names, dates, every dirty deal. Your web's unraveling, Harlan, not by bullets, but by the light you couldn't bury." The detective's snarl faltered, eyes flicking to the van's retreating taillights, realization dawning like a cold dawn. He'd built his empire on silence, on families like Noah's crushed under threats, but loyalty had outmaneuvered him, a chosen family, forged in foxholes and on blacktop, rising where corruption sowed division. Lucas stepped forward, voice laced with the scars of betrayal. "I stood up for the town you sold out, for kids like my brother caught in your shadows. That promise, it's bigger than you." Noah nodded, his small frame straight, the alley's terror transmuted into quiet strength. Sirens wailed faintly from the horizon. Real ones this time, federal lights piercing the night, drawn by Olivia's encrypted tip. The detective's men radioed panic, their pursuit fracturing as reinforcements closed in. Harlan lowered his gun, not in surrender, but defeat, the weight of exposure bowing his shoulders. "You outlaws, you don't know what you're stirring." But Ethan met his gaze, the scar on his jaw a testament to battles won through honor, not force. "We know exactly. Justice isn't yours to hoard. It's what we ride for." As agents swarmed the quarry, cuffing the fallen enforcers and securing the scene, the angels mounted up one last time. Engines ignited in a symphony of redemption, the convoy reforming under the fading moon, headlights carving a path back to the open road. Lucas rode beside Ethan, the brothers in arms reunited, Noah with Maria, the group a tapestry of healed wounds and unbreakable bonds. The ledgers would ignite investigations, toppling the corrupt like dominoes, freeing the town from its chains, not with vengeance, but with the enduring power of a promise kept. Dawn broke as they crested the hills, painting the horizon in strokes of gold and rose, the air fresh with dew-kissed promise. Ethan felt the road's forgiveness in every mile, the oath from those long-ago sands, finally honored, weaving Lucas and Noah into the angels' fold. Shadows of pursuit dissolved in the rear view, replaced by the vast sky, a canvas for new rides, new stands. In a world of broken words, they'd proven loyalty's roar louder than any storm, a shield for the vulnerable, a legacy etched in asphalt and heart. Thank you for riding this journey with us. Stories of honor and redemption like Ethan's remind us that true strength lies in the promises we keep. If this tale moved you, hit that subscribe button and join the crew for more. Your support keeps the engines running.